Hi, everyone. This is Raquel.
Hi, and this is Jennifer.
Welcome to Madness Cafe.
This is a feminist podcast where we talk about women's issues, politics, and health and wellness.
And where those issues intersect. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Madness Cafe. It's me and Jennifer today. And we're going to talk about something that you've probably heard a lot about already, or hopefully you've started to hear about it. It's Project 2025, which is a behemoth. It is a 900 plus page document that is basically the plan for conservatives once the next conservative president, whoever, and they say this, whoever he or she may be, for them to take over. One thing that I found out when doing the research for this was that the whole idea of having this plan or like mandate or I don't know, playbook, whatever you want to call it, is not new for the Conservative Party. They started doing this decades ago. And the first one was handed to Ronald Reagan, and he basically followed that shit to the letter, pretty much. And this is, I'm not disparaging anything. I'm not making this shit up. If you go to Project 2025's website, it was written by the Heritage Foundation. Just go to the heritagefoundation.com, whatever. It says literally when they're talking about the history of it, that the first time they handed it to Ronald Reagan and said, here you go. And he said, okay. And off he went.
And he implemented 60% of the guidelines that were in that mandate.
Yes. Yes, that is very
60%. True. So what I've heard about Project 2025 is it is an ultimate plan, like the far-reaching goals, like the shoot for the stars. And even if some of it gets mandated, they're still well on their way to what were the words? The words were to move America to a far-right Christian nation.
Yes. Yes. And literally it says, our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state.
Yep.
It's in writing.
Yep. And if you go on their website, there are several tabs at the top. One tab is to register yourself as one of these conservative people who wants to be part of the plan. And then there's a whole nother area where you can begin your training now to join their team.
Because and they say this too, that their project is built on 4 pillars. One, which is Project 2025 that everybody has been talking about, the big 900 plus page document that you too can get for free. They will just, all you have to do is download it. You can get it. That's what I did.
Did you print that whole
part
thing?
one. I have, no,
okay,
we have so many books to read already. I did not have time to get through all 900 pages.
Okay, good. I made it about 30 pages myself.
Yeah, I did. I looked at a lot. But
actually, I take that back. I read about 17 pages.
There you go. There you go. But thankfully, there are a lot of organizations and reporters that have and all kinds of other people who have done the work of breaking this down and reading all of it so that we don't have to. And one of them is the ACLU. The other is on MSNBC. Ali Velshi has gone through it. So literally every episode of his show, he does one chapter. Joy Reid's show called The Readout, she's doing the same thing. So there are organizations that have gone through all of this. So you don't have to do all this. But so okay, so here are the other pillars. So the first one is this book. Pillar 2 is a personnel database that allows candidates to build their own professional profiles and our coalition members to review meaning their review and voice recommendations.
Yep.
The recommendations will then be collated and shared with the president-elect's team, greatly streamlining the appointment process. So basically, they're just putting their people just right in, going, hey,
Oh yeah, they're
here's so-and-so, here are the people, right? So they're
they're
building their
building the bench,
Mhm.
getting them all in line.
Yeah, and then pillar 3 is the Presidential Administration Academy, an online educational system taught by experts from the coalition. Sure.
You're making angry things with your face as you're saying that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, because it's, yeah,
Coalition.
it makes me very angry, it makes me very
I
angry.
can see that.
Yeah, and then pillar 4, which is called the playbook, and it says they're forming agency teams and drafting transition plans to move out upon the president's utterance of "So help me God." They're literally prepared for this to start on day 1. So as soon as the next conservative president takes the oath, they're off and running.
Okay, so I'm going to play the devil's advocate here for a
Oh
second.
God. Okay, go ahead.
I have 3 questions around that, so bear
Okay.
with me.
Okay.
Number 1, what makes us think the Democrats don't have their own Democratic playbook for day 1? Number
Okay, go ahead.
2,
Mhm.
I've forgotten number 2. That's really funny. Shit, can I even remember number 3 now? Holy shit, this has just made my brain go waka waka waka.
Well, I can answer number 1 while you're
Okay.
trying to remember 2 and 3.
Okay.
Okay, so number 1, yes, probably. Yeah, probably. Democrats have some sort of plan. I mean, it just makes sense that you're gonna have a plan already in place so that when you get started, you know what you're gonna do, right? Yeah, I mean, that only makes sense. But the thing to remember about Project 2025 is that, God, this just upsets me so greatly, is that basically they're going to change the entire way that the government works.
Oh, I remember number 2.
Okay.
Number 2 is, okay, so let's assume right now we're going into this election and Trump is the conservative candidate. Let's assume he gets the presidency. Let's not assume that, but let's for the
Okay.
for this discussion's sake.
And that sound was the sound of my soul crushing. But anyway, go ahead.
Who says that he would actually even go along with and implement Project 2025?
I would say because the people that have written it, so many of them are his supporters and or people who worked for him in his administration
And
when
did
he was
he
president.
and did he have a Project 2020? When was he elected?
2020.
And did he have a project?
2016.
Yeah. Did he have a Project 2016 when he was elected last time? Because he seemed kind of like there were some very strong conservative agenda type things that happened in that presidency.
You know, I think he probably did. That's a really good question. I don't know if I've heard anybody ask that.
See, I'm brilliant. No,
You
people
are
don't know
brilliant.
this, but I'm brilliant.
You are
Well,
brilliant.
okay, so I have to assume that he did because we're talking about Ronald Reagan had it way back in the day. He implemented 60%. I have to think Heritage Foundation didn't just stop.
No.
And now, do I believe Trump read a 900-page report? I'm
pretty sure Trump
no.
has not read 900 pages of anything across his lifetime.
But I could see him like flipping through and saying, this interests me, that doesn't interest me, this interests me. Or I could see him going to his top advisors and saying, what should we be doing? Because
I think probably that.
yeah, top advisors.
Mhm.
So what's most disturbing about Project 2025 to you?
There's so much, but basically what the plan is to completely dismantle the US government the way that it currently and that we're all used to it operating, that basically it will cease to be a democracy. The few checks and balances that exist will cease to exist. There will not be the three branches of government. And then coupled with the ruling that the Supreme Court set out that basically gives complete immunity to the president, that basically means democracy will be over and that we will be living under a dictatorship.
Dictator Trump.
Yeah. And no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want to live under a dictator at all. I don't want to live under a dictator of any stripe at all. I always want to have a say in how I am governed and have some say and be represented in my government somehow. And if Project 2025 comes to be, I'm so afraid that we won't get the chance, at least peacefully or easily, to take it down and reform democracy.
So Project 2025 starts with a foreword. This
Mhm.
foreword is called A Promise to America by Kevin D. Roberts, PhD. I don't know who the hell he is, but I don't like him so much.
He's not one of
He's
my favorite people.
There's a paragraph that says blah 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 that we were in trouble in the 70s, but the second paragraph says today America and the conservative movement are enduring an era of division and danger akin to the late 1970s. Now as then, our political class has been discredited by the wholesale dishonesty and corruption. Look at America under the ruling and cultural elite today. Inflation is ravaging family budgets, drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Overseas, a total communist dictatorship in Beijing is engaged in a strategic, cultural, and economic Cold War against America's interests, values, and people, all while global elitists in Washington awaken only slowly to that growing threat. Moreover, low-income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. Contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of the 1970s radical chic to build the I can't say this word, totalitarian cult known today
Totalitarian.
thank you.
You're welcome.
As the Great Awakening, quote, the Great Awakening.
Oh my God.
And now as then, the Republic Party seems to have little understanding about what to do. Most alarming of all, the very moral foundations of our society are in peril. Woo!
One thing that really disturbs me, or one of many things that disturbs me about Project 2025, is this foundation of religion and very conservative religion, and sort of that being the stronghold, right? Like everything being viewed through the lens of a religious society and religious governance. And it's very frightening. It reminds me of basically an
Handmaid's
American
Tale.
version Well, yeah, definitely. It reminds me of The Handmaid's Tale, and it makes me think of basically an American version of the Taliban.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Yes, Raquel. Yes. That's why, I mean, I think we've had podcast after podcast after podcast where we've said, people, please open your eyes.
Yeah,
Have
yeah,
your religion. Nobody's telling you not to.
yeah. Do it, but keep it to you. Do you? You do you. Don't make me do you. Right? Like, don't
That
make
sounded
me
that
be you.
sounded slightly sexual,
It
Raquel.
did. It did. But also, depending on who you are, don't make me do you. Just don't. Just don't. Yeah,
So,
and it's just because what I keep hearing is people are talking about, oh well, this is a nation. Well, it's in the Constitution that this is a God-fearing nation, and blah. This is a country founded on religious what? No, no, no. The Constitution is a document saying that you can worship however you want, not
or not.
not that this is a country based on God. That's I just get so upset thinking about all of this.
You sounding kind of like an atheist, Missy.
Yeah, a little bit.
No, you're
Little
not an
bit.
atheist. That's me.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So there are in the foreword, it says that there's four parts of this. Number one is to restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. That marriage part ought to draw particular interest and protect our children. Probably that's pro-life rhetoric.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
Number two, dismantle the administrative state and return self-governance to the American people. Number three, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats, mass deportation of immigrants. Number four, secure our God-given individual rights to live freely, but only for those that think they have God-given rights. Whatever our Constitution calls the blessing of liberty.
Yeah.
What makes these four pieces of the conservative promise so valuable to the next president is they cut straight through the superficial distractions and focus on the moral and foundational challenges America faces in this moment of history. This was one of the secrets of conservative success in the Reagan era, one our generation should emulate.
I think what people need to pay attention to is what the outcomes will be from Project 2025. And I mean the literal real world outcomes. For instance, people who are quote unquote what the term is called civil servants, people who work government jobs and are in those jobs regardless of who is the president, doing their job to the best of their ability, regardless of whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president. Those people will be let go.
If we get a
if we get a Republican president who decides to implement Project 2025.
Right. And if they don't see eye to eye with the project.
Right. Exactly. So there are not only lots of people who will lose their jobs, but all of the knowledge that these people have about that job and
protecting our country.
Yeah, protecting our country, all those people, that knowledge base is gone. That's ridiculous. It's
scary as shit.
It's scary. It is ridiculous. It's awful.
I have a whole list of
Okay.
This is from Project 2025's website.
Okay, good.
And this is what they say about fear mongering. The truth about Project 2025.
Okay.
The left has spent millions fear mongering about Project 2025 because they're terrified of losing their power. And they should be. Project 2025 offers a menu of solutions to the border crisis, inflation, a stagnant economy, and rampant crime. It shows how we can take on China, fix our schools, support families, but most importantly, it dismantles the unaccountable deep state, taking power away from the leftist elites and giving back to the American people. So there's a list here that says it's debunking what is true, what is not.
Okay.
So Project 2025 is a plan from Trump. False. Terminate the Constitution. False. Give the government more power over your daily life. False. Gut democratic checks and balances on presidential power. False. Ban books and curriculum about slavery. False. Continue to pack the Supreme Court and lower costs with right-wing judges. False. End civil rights. False. End DEI protections in government. True. Promote and expedite capital punishment. True. See, I think it all has to do with wording and what we all think these things mean. But
Right.
But I'll keep going. This is their list, so we can
Okay.
agree or not agree with it. But we'll continue.
Okay.
And no fault divorce. False. And marriage equality. False. Complete ban on abortion without exceptions. False. Ban contraceptives. False. Ban IVF. False. Condemn single mothers whilst promoting only traditional family values. False. Outlaw pornography. True. They do have a big bit about pornography in this.
Mm-hmm.
And the Affordable Care Act. False. Raise prescription drug prices. False. End free and discounted school lunch programs. False. Use public taxpayer money for private religious schools. True. Shut down the Department of Education. True. Cut Social Security. False. Eliminate unions and worker protections. False. Raise the retirement age. False. Cut Medicare. False. Mass deportation of illegal immigrants. True.
Whoa.
Deregulate big business and the oil industry. Mostly true. So that's their own list. Now,
Damn.
a lot of it is really unclear because when they talk about like their views on abortion, etc., in that list, it is kind of conflicting some of the things that are actually written in here. For example, on page 6 of their promise, they say, finally, conservatives should gratefully celebrate the greatest pro-family win in a generation, overturning Roe versus Wade. A decision that for 5 decades made a mockery of our Constitution and facilitated the deaths of tens of millions of unborn children. But the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. Conservatives in the states and in Washington, including the next conservative administration, should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. In particular, the next conservative president should work with Congress to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support while deploying existing federal powers to protect innocent life and vigorously complying with the statutory bans on the federal funding of abortion. It goes on and on. So that's sort of contradictory to what they said in the other piece. Because remember, go back there.
I wonder if they purposely wrote it in a confusing way so that people don't know.
Yeah, so you can pull out, okay, so first of all, if you just read their list, that what they say, they do not support a complete ban on abortions.
Right.
So they said false. But then when you really read it, it says that they do support it, but maybe it's because they want states to decide rather than the federal government.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yes, I do think I think in many places in this document, they contradict themselves.
Yeah.
Most
I
specifically, when they say okay, so there was a line in here, I don't have it marked right now, but they talked about school teachers and librarians being jailed and their jobs taken away for distributing pornography in school. And in the same breath, they say that they are not doing book bans on slavery. However, there are some books that depict slavery that they are describing as pornography.
Yeah.
It's not pornography.
Yeah.
But they're describing it as pornography because of some of the sexual scenes in the books.
Right. So basically, they're defining what pornography is. They're determining what information about slavery is okay.
That's right. That's right.
And they're going to do away with the Department of Education.
That's right.
So there's not going to be a department to oversee any of this to make sure that correct information is being disseminated and taught.
That's right. So they could, in essence, any book that had any mention of sex or sexual orientation or even
or holding hands,
even
kissing before marriage.
Anything could be called pornography. And then a teacher or a librarian could lose their job and be arrested. Right?
Jesus. Yeah.
This is what they want, is a government that has absolute control.
Absolutely.
And as President Trump said, or ex-President Trump said, if I get elected, you will not have to worry about voting again. This will be the last time you'll have to vote. How do you like these voices I'm coming up with these days?
I know, very good.
They're not very good, but
but
I'm animated because I'm angry about this.
Yeah. They talk about liberty and freedom, but not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's freedom to live the way they tell you to live. That's not freedom.
Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders, and telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered. And they're talking about pornography.
Well, and because it's their definition of what pornography is.
Oh, so, exactly.
Yeah. So basically, they're going to shut down whatever they don't like. And there's actually, going back to Project 2025, in the table of contents, like, they list all of the organizations that they want to have a hand in. One of them is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Oh, they want to control our media?
Yeah, they want to control our media. That's just not okay. I mean, that's basically living in, oh God, that's basically living in a country where you have no personal rights whatsoever, no access to information, no access to anything other than what they want you to have access to.
Okay, but Raquel, this is what frustrates me about this is I don't think that Project 2025 is going to come to pass this year or early next year. I think what's going to happen is we're going to have President Harris be elected. I strongly believe that's going to happen. Yes. I could be wrong, but I strongly believe and envision that. But then what do we do in the next 4 years, and the next 4 years, and the next 4 years? We have realized from this document that the conservative agenda, like the far conservative agenda,
far right,
but the wackadoodle conservative agenda has not gone away. We saw it when Trump got into presidency. It has been bubbling underground, come up. So we get our first woman president. Things go relatively smoothly for the next 4 years. And then what? Then it's Project 29. Did I do my math right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then it's Project 2029 or the next group, or does this eventually get squashed? Like what is the long haul here?
I don't know if it will get squashed. And that's what scares the hell out of me, is that I think this is just going to continue to exist. And it's going to be continually incumbent upon Democrats and moderate conservatives and moderate Republicans who don't ascribe to all this to protect democracy. I think we've gotten to a point where literally every single election is a fight to protect democracy. And what also scares me is that people are going to get tired of it. People are already tired of hearing that. Like, we keep saying, oh, this is the most important election of our lives. And every election we keep saying it because it's true, but people keep getting sick of hearing it. They're like, oh, but you said that last time. Oh, but you said that the time before. And
And
so I
it
think people are going to get tired of it. People are going to get apathetic. And then
they'll
little
sneak
by
by.
little, it's going to sneak by. Just little by little, democracy is going to continue to be chipped away. And eventually, something like this is going to come to pass anyway.
Well, it seems to me like it is the sickness of our society in that most of us are so busy with just the day-to-day life of trying to keep up. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean keep up with the Joneses. I mean keep up with go
Yeah.
get up, go to work, get your
Mm-hmm.
work done, come home, make dinner, get in bed, pay your bills, do it all again. We're doing that. We don't even like the amount of research it takes to even be involved in politics this day. Like
Yeah.
everything that the Supreme Court is doing that we don't even know about because it's not on the nightly news. And to be involved in every cause that we think is important, to stay on top of all the emails, and
Yeah.
it's just frankly exhausting.
Very.
And it feels like there is no end in sight, and it feels like this lifestyle, this capitalism and patriarchy and the system that we have built in the United States, and God knows it's a lot better system than a lot of other people in the world
Yeah.
are dealing with. But quite frankly, it just seems sort of, I don't know, we have to figure out a different, we have to vision something different.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
it feels like we're just caught on a hamster wheel,
yeah, that's what
you
I think.
know?
That's good summation of what I was trying to say. That's why people
It's
get
so
apathetic.
daunting.
It's not
Yeah.
because they don't care. They do care, but they're like, how do I even keep up? How do I even know what's going on? How do I hear things that happen 10 days after, a year after they had, like Project 2025? You want me to get on and read a 900-page document?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after I read it, what am I supposed to do about it?
Right. Right.
Right? Like I read it. I didn't read it, but I'm just saying the apathetic possibility. Like, where is my power other than my vote? Because our vote is fucking important. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
telling anybody not to vote. In fact, I'm saying
Please
vote.
vote. Please vote.
Yeah. But I can see why people get apathetic because you can't even keep up. We
Yeah.
can't even, right now, we can barely afford to pay for our groceries.
Right. This is just a small example, but here I am. I don't have kids, but I work a full-time job and I do the podcast. And, I'm trying to work out consistently. I'm trying to do all the things.
Yep.
But one thing that one among many, that I've not been able to incorporate back into my life is meal prepping. And I was talking to a friend yesterday. I'm like, when am I going to do
When
that? When?
Right. When.
And I don't have kids. I don't have nearly the
That's what I'm
responsibilities and
saying.
obligations of some people. And I'm like, how am I going to fit meal prepping into my life? How the hell do I expect anybody
That's
to
what I'm
sit
saying.
down and read 900 and some pages?
It's not even the reading of it, because I feel like after listening to 2 or 3 podcasts about Project 2025, watching enough TikToks, and who knows how accurate they are,
Mm-hmm.
and then also reading everything on their website about what it's about and reading the synopsis, I feel like I got a fair enough idea of what's going on. So I don't
Yeah.
actually have to read the entire thing. But if we weren't doing the podcast, would I have taken time to actually do that? Probably not.
Yeah.
And I think that's the crux of where we are in society right now, is most of us are just trying to make it to the next morning.
Yeah.
There's so much to do. And you're absolutely right. How do we do everything that presses down upon us?
Yeah.
How do we? So while we're going to work and we're running in the rat race and doing all this, behind the scenes, there's how many authors were 300 people
Yeah.
getting together, writing opinions about how they should change our political landscape and our way of life behind our backs,
Mm-hmm.
without us really knowing about it, although it's all out there for us to read.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they know
Yeah.
we're not going to.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, and this is going to make me sound a little crackpotty, but whatever. I
I
think it's
like
also
that.
true.
I like that. I respect that.
Because of capitalism and lack of equity and just the disproportionate world that we live in, we are all working so hard that we literally, for whatever reason, either because we have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs to just to make ends meet or even come close, because we think our only worth is in productivity, so we can't slow down, even if we do have a job that provides, so we don't have to have more than one, or we, or for whatever reason, we don't have the time to just be and to put our mental focus on something other than just being a cog in the wheel.
That's right. That's right. And as the design is on purpose, and actually, it is my belief, after reading the very little that I did,
Mm-hmm.
that this design actually keeps us as a cog in that wheel.
Absolutely.
The whole premise of it is to keep, I don't have the right words, the little people little. It's
Mm-hmm.
to keep us divided and not united, because united we have a lot of fucking power.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Mm-hmm.
we're so busy just trying to keep up, we haven't figured out that the people who have time to write this bullshit have time to take over the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And it
and
is
that's and that
bullshit.
scares me. That scares me.
And
That scares me so much.
it is bullshit, but it's so, the wording in it is so targeted at people who want to think that once in time there was this beautiful way of life that was serene, that the family was happy, that wives didn't divorce their husbands. Well, they didn't divorce their husbands
Because
because
they couldn't.
they had no money, they couldn't get jobs. They
Well, and
couldn't.
they weren't allowed to. Like,
Right.
women were not allowed to file for and obtain divorces.
I love this line. The next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke cultural warriors. This is where it gets really ugly though.
Oh God.
This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitive, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment right out of every federal rule, agency regulation, contract grant regulation, and piece of legislation that exists.
Okay, it's so rich that they're saying that they're invoking the First Amendment right, freedom
Exactly.
of speech, when they're talking about taking all of these words out of things and criminalizing those words and phrases.
Exactly. That's I hate to say it, but that's actually kind of the genius of the writing of this, is that they appeal to a certain audience who feels
Aggrieved.
aggrieved upon. Yes. And and they think, oh, hearken back to those good days when life just
When men were men and women were women.
and I could just come home and my dinner was magically appear on the table for me. And I didn't have to worry about being emotionally available to a wife and children because that wasn't an expectation for me.
Exactly.
Sorry, men. I'm not yelling at men. I'm just yelling at like the gender talk. Like,
yeah, it's awful. It is so. I think I just got so upset I literally forgot what I was going to say. So my brain just shut down for a minute.
I mean, they said in the beginning no to all those things, like no, no, no. But then veiled within the words of the rest of the document, it's not really true. It's no, but we're going to take away all these words.
You know what? Okay, my thought just came back to me. You've read 1984, right?
Oh yeah, one of my favorite books, George Orwell.
Yeah.
High school. They made me.
Yeah. So basically they talk about the double speak. That's what's happening. It's the double speak.
Thank you.
This is 1984.
Thank you.
Come to life.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was trying to say without the words. It's like they list it all, but then when you actually read the words, they're telling you they're painting a different story. With precisely selected wording.
Yeah.
That appeals to a certain population of people.
Right.
Specifically people who are on the religious right. There's no question about that. You know, the talk about abortion is top. The talk about pornography is top. I'm no fan of pornography, people, but let's be careful who's defining that.
Right.
And then also in this document, they talk about trans people and drag queens bringing pornography to children, right? They talk about this and how that sexually exploits them or something along those lines. I don't have the words exactly right, so don't quote me on that one. I didn't read it directly from but then when we go back and we look at all these conversations that we've had from women who've left the extreme religious right, and we see how much sexual abuse actually happens in those families and in those communities and in the church, that's just like pointing the finger actually where it doesn't belong.
Right. Exactly.
Wait a second, people.
Yeah. What's that saying? When you point one finger at somebody, there's 4 others or 3 others pointing back at you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what this is.
They have yet to even look at the point that women and children are talking about so much rampant sexual abuse within that subculture, within the churches. Not all churches, I'm not trying to say that, people,
right.
But we're not even looking at the data. Where does this sexual abuse actually come from?
Right. And so basically,
there's no data on trans people and drag queens and sexual abuse. There's no data.
Yeah. But basically, all of this, like we're saying, all of this is coming from being rooted in, or not all of it, but a lot of it, rooted in very conservative, very religious, high
Patriarchal.
control, patriarchal societies, subcultures, right? And when we look at those, very few people have rights and freedoms in that subculture.
I think that's the
But
point.
well, right. But look at the people who leave and listen to what they say. Listen to them because they're giving us a warning. They want to turn the entire country into that subculture.
I
And
think,
we are going to end up having experiences very similar to the people who have left and
yes,
said, hey, pay attention.
yes. The same story is told in Tia Loving's book,
Mm.
in
In
your
Kate West's book
and Sarah
and Sarah Stancorp's
Dancorb,
reporting in her book.
but also the book we read about Iran,
Yes.
what
Yes.
Iranians want, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think people should go
Very
back.
restrictive governments and cultures squashing any sort of freedom or individuality or autonomy or sovereignty. It just results in so many harms.
It reminds me so much of Margaret Atwood's, but also the Handmaiden Tale that they did on Netflix or wherever it
Hulu.
was, on Hulu. Okay,
Mhm.
sorry, Hulu. When you had, I cannot remember her name, but you had the woman who was like really professing why we needed to have Gilead, and she was fighting with her
Oh,
husband.
Serena Joy.
Serena Joy, who became like the spokesperson. And
Mhm.
she was like talking about all these virtues, and she really believed it. She was like, yes, this is a virtuous world, and there's nothing wrong with living a pious life. And she's like, so this is why we should have it. And she's glamorizing it, and she believes it. And then little by little, the freedoms are taken away until eventually her husband cuts off her finger for reading.
Mhm. Mhm.
Remember?
Yep.
And then the next thing you know, she's trying to escape with her baby.
Yeah.
It wasn't really her baby. Not to give a spoiler alert, but it's like, yes, we aspire to these like golden lives, and we say, oh, you must live this way, you must live this way, but don't think that oppression isn't going to turn around and face you.
Mhm. Mhm. And why is that? And I ask this every time, and it
I saw
gets
that
me
anger in your
every time,
face.
is fine, live your life how you want to, but why do you have to put that on somebody else? Why does
Why?
everybody have to live according to one person's ideal?
Well, this guy that I knew, I'm just going to try and answer this and play the devil's advocate again. This
Okay.
guy that I knew when I was a free loving 20 something, hanging out at the bars and making out with boys on the down low, there was this guy I worked with who, I don't know if he was born again, he was a Mormon, he was something, he had a little crushy on me, and he was like following me around, and he was like
Mhm.
trying to talk to me about Jesus. And I was like, I'm not really interested.
Mhm.
I was trying to be nice. He was a nice enough guy. And one day I said to him, probably after a couple beers, why do you keep trying to talk to me about Jesus? I've clearly said, this isn't my path. I'm not going to be doing this. And he said, let me ask you what you would do if you knew that there was only one boat. This one boat was where you were going to be saved, and everybody else was going to drown. And you really liked certain people. Wouldn't you try and get them on the boat with you so that in the end, you all, I guess, end up in heaven? I don't know. But he was trying to say, like, I guess in all essence, he didn't want me to be damned to hell. He wanted me to go to heaven with him. But
But
me, being the kind of cheeky young woman that I was, said, I think I'd rather go to hell. I probably had too many beers. I don't think I really said that. I don't actually believe in else. So it's hard for me to imagine these things.
But why do they think that their belief that there's only one boat
But they
is
believe
true?
it because they've been indoctrinated into it since they were little
I
kids.
know, I
They
know.
believe they haven't got because they haven't been allowed to read the books in school
Right.
because they haven't been able to have discussions with people outside of their little orbit because they haven't been able to watch movies and get on the internet and have discussions and listen to our podcast. And think about
Yeah.
like when Tia Levings and she was writing her book, or
Mm-hmm.
before she was writing her book, when she was talking about like getting out, she had to sneak onto the internet to
Mm-hmm.
find, to learn about things. And
Yeah,
think
same with
about,
Kate.
and Kate West was talking about how, you know, when she got to college after she finally escaped, she had no idea about certain things because it wasn't in her. No one allowed it to be anything that she could learn about.
Right.
And that is why they don't want us to read anything.
I
That
know.
is why yes, I think books should be age appropriate for children, but we shouldn't be banning anything.
Right. And just because you, not you personally, but just because one parent thinks something is not appropriate for their 5-year-old, that that should not give that one parent the right to say that I, if I had a 5-year-old, couldn't let my kid read the book. Because
No,
guess
agreed.
what? I might think my kid's fine to read that book. Or maybe I'm going to have a conversation with my kid about the book after they read it.
That's what I used to try and do with my kids, and they never wanted to have the conversation.
Well,
But
sure, sure.
but I think what's challenging for some parents, because I've tried to look at it from their perspective, if they really feel like certain things are out of their kids' grasp, I
Mhm.
think what's challenging for them is they say, I've decided that my kid is too young to read Push. Have you read Push?
I haven't read Push, but I saw the movie that was based on Push.
Yeah, there's some pretty graphic language in Push. I mean,
Sure.
the young woman is raped
Mhm.
multiple times.
Right.
Push is a brilliant book, by the way. I'd
Mhm.
love to talk about it sometime. Thing I love the most about it, getting a little off topic, just real quick, is her language changes as she becomes educated. So the
Awesome.
narration of the book is fucking amazing. It is a brilliant piece of writing. Anyway, so someone could decide, hey, I think Push is a pretty heavy topic for my kid. I got the sensitive kid. I don't
Mhm.
want him reading Push. Fine, right? But then her kid gets to school and she's in the library and she finds the book Push and she reads it.
Mm.
That parent is concerned about that, right? And I get
Yeah.
that to some
Okay.
extent.
Okay. Yeah,
I get
that's
that to
fair.
some extent. What our school did to kind of combat that is that parents who wanted to could put in a request to have anything that their kid checked out be passed by them first,
That's fair.
right? I
Yeah, I
chose
guess that's
not.
fair.
In some ways it's fair, but in other ways, okay, as a parent, sure. And that's the other thing Project 2025 says. Parents should be the primary educator of their child. It says that clearly in this document. However, I take some issue with that because you go back to Kate West and Tia Levings, and let's say their parents are their primary educators.
Mhm.
They're going to see everything they check out of the library. They're going to see everything that they try to read. So they
Yeah.
get to read nothing. So
Right.
what if we have a young child who thinks maybe I have some, maybe I'm a girl and I like girls, but I've never seen anyone like me. I might want to
Mhm.
read a book about
Yeah.
other young girls' experience with this because I'm confused, or
Right. Good
but I
point.
have no access to that. So there are no simple black and white answers because
Right.
of course as a parent you want to protect your kid, you want your kid to be ready, but then there are other kids that are under this iron thumb of
Yeah.
no, you can't read anything, and they
Right.
want them that way. Project
Yeah.
2025 wants it that way.
Yeah. Plus, as we've said, we barely have time to keep ourselves educated and informed. How
Right.
in the hell are we going to do all the things to make sure that our kids are learning all the things that they're supposed to learn. And I'm not a math teacher.
No,
I'm not a history teacher.
no, it's darn near fucking
I'm not,
impossible.
yeah, I'm not qualified to teach history to my, imaginary child.
Yeah, and if you homeschool, they give you those packets, and those packets are full of exactly whatever rhetoric they want you to
Mm-hmm.
teach your kids
Mm-hmm.
because you're not qualified. And so here you are thinking, oh, I'm going to try and homeschool my kids and I'm going to try to teach from these packets. No teacher teaches every subject.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah. And
ridiculous.
if you're trying to work and put food on the table, when are you going to homeschool your kid?
Oh, well, these are the trad wives. They don't get to
Oh,
have
well,
jobs.
yeah, sure.
Even if they want jobs, but they don't, because the
But
trad
they
wife
don't.
is, it's so nice to stay home all day and clean and cook and wipe shit off my baby's ass. I don't need a job where I talk to adults. That's not important to me.
Ooh, yikes.
Okay.
So
Nothing against
what do we do?
nothing against traditional wives. It's okay to stay home with your kids. It's beautiful. I'm
Yeah,
actually
that's
kind of,
and
I'm
that's your
actually kind of
decision.
jealous. I'm
And
actually
that's
kind of
your
jealous.
decision.
Right.
I'm not gonna force you to go out and get a job, just like dear sweet Jesus, don't force me to stay at home and birth a lot of babies. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. So what are we going to do? That was your question?
Yes. So what do we do? So vote.
And vote blue, people. I'm
Yes,
not
please.
here to tell you to where to vote, but vote blue. Vote blue.
Yeah. And you know what? Educate yourself. You don't have to do hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of research. Yes, there are independent third-party organizations that have done the synopsis of Project 2025. If you don't know which ones to trust, maybe look at a few of them and then use your ability to think critically and figure out where you land on it. But don't just go along blindly accepting everything. Don't even just take our word for it. This is just the tip of the Project 2025 iceberg. There's information out there about it, lots of information, which, hey, that's a really good thing, because if Project 2025 becomes the law of the land, you won't have access to information, and the information won't be there even if you did have access.
And honestly, I didn't read a ton of 2025, but it wasn't that hard to read. It's not like they use some scientific jargon or
no.
legalese. They didn't try to, it's just, this is some plain speaking.
Yeah.
It's, anyone can access this.
It's just voluminous. It's just a lot of it.
And I don't think you have to read it all to get the gist.
No.
I don't think you have to.
Yeah. Just, hop around. Like I said, in the table of contents, they make it clear what departments they're going after.
Yep.
Pick a department that you think, I wonder what would happen if that was taken away. Just read that section. That might be enough to scare the hell out of you.
And I think the most telling thing in all of this was Trump standing up and saying, you gotta vote. You just gotta vote this time. But
just this one time.
Just this one time. And then you won't have to worry about it anymore. You won't have to vote anymore. If people did not hear the clear message in that, and I don't care who said that.
Yeah.
Anybody who said that, we should not be voting for that person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I could see a day where I could maybe vote for Republican if there was someone on the Democratic side saying something like that. I would go more middle line Republican than I would I know it was a hard thing to say, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think anybody should, even if
Yeah,
like,
nobody should. If Joe Biden stood up and said, only vote this one time because you won't have to vote anymore, I'd be like,
no, we
Joe,
can't be voting for you, Joe, then,
Be like, Joe,
because
sit down, man. Yeah,
right,
no.
because that's just that message. I don't care where you stand politically. Nobody wants that.
Nobody. I like being able to have some say in how I'm governed. I like having a voice in my own life.
I also don't think it's too far-fetched that there's something similar to Project 2025 on the Democratic side that says like what they would do in the first how many days, but I
Well,
don't
sure, but that's called
a
just
plan.
what their plan is. It's
Right.
not, here's our plan to dismantle democracy.
They should be asking for a plan actually from
Mhm,
both parties. Give us your
mhm.
plan. Let
Yeah,
us read it.
yeah. Well,
Prior
and I mean, but the Democrats have already, I mean, Kamala Harris has already started talking about what her plans are, right?
yeah,
Nothing that she has said
says we won't have to
can
vote
lead,
again.
right, exactly. And nothing is saying, meh, we're going to take a whole bunch of rights away from people and we're just going to dismantle democracy and I am going to be the queen ruler
And we'll
forever and
fire
ever. Amen.
everyone, and you can only be hired if you're registered on our database as an ally, a
Yeah,
supporter,
a loyalist.
a loyalist. You always have the best words.
Thank you.
A loyalist.
So,
Any final
yeah,
thoughts?
just the call to action for people. Please just, do some research and please vote. Please vote. Please vote.
Or the Harris Waltz ticket.
Yes, please, for Harris Wall's ticket.
I hear you. It's a lot.
It is a lot. It's daunting and it's frightening, but I wouldn't be frightened if I didn't care about preserving democracy.
Oh, thanks, my friend.
Thank you, friend.
It's a wrap.
Thanks everyone for listening today. We will be back with more Madness Cafe next week. You can find us on Instagram at Madness Cafe Podcast or email us at madnesscafepodcast@gmail.com. Bye.